Hello, my name is Marni Freedman, and I am the co-founder and programming director for the San Diego Writers Festival, and we want to welcome you to the written scene.
Hello and welcome to The Written Scene. My name is Adam Greenfield. I am the host, and we have a guest today that I have known for quite a while, but finally get to talk to her for really the first time in depth. Before we dive into that, as I mentioned in previous episodes, you may hear some construction. I live in a mixed-use neighborhood, and they tore down an old bar and are putting in a pot pie place with some ice cream, and there goes my bank account, and my waistline. If you hear any noises, a lot of drilling or backing up of trucks and the beeping noises, I apologize, but I can't tell them to stop. So here we are. Anyway, so again, today's guest is a staple here in San Diego in the writing community, and I'm really looking forward to finally talking to her. So Marni, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I didn't know I was a staple.
Oh, yes. You, Judy Reeves, Jill Hall, Michael Clam, like all these people that are just major players in this community, and you all lift it up to where it's a very special thing.
Wow.
So thank you for that. Thank you. So you, to start, you have a ton of exciting stuff happening in your writing life right now. What are you most excited about?
I'm writing a book about women in creativity.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were doing this.
Well,
Did you keep it secret for a little while? Or?
Sort of. It's called How to Talk to Lightning, and so and it's a woman's guidebook to becoming a force of nature, creative force of nature. So I've been kind of hibernating, as you do, and just gathering a lot of information and interviewing a ton of creative women, and getting a sense of the pulse of where we're at and how pissed off people are, and I think a lot of people feel like we're farther along than we are in some ways. Than we actually are. Yeah. So, I start the book with a story about me being in New York when I was like 21, and I saw a sign from the Gorilla Girls, who are a group of, do you know about them?
I don't.
They wear gorilla masks, and they go around making people aware of the inequity of women in museums.
Oh,
that's their mission.
What's the gorilla mask?
I don't know. They're just anonymous. Like, you don't know who they were.
They just want to be anonymous.
They're just
Got it.
in gorilla
masks.
So
they pick gorilla masks.
They pick gorilla masks, and they put signs up that, this one was in front of the Met, and it just had the statistics of how many women artists were technically in, versus how many nude women were in there. It was just and I'm like, so that was my first introduction to what was going on with women in creativity, because I feel like when we're connected, everyone, when we're connected to our creativity, it's such a life-giving force that we can all tap into. Mm-hmm. It's powerful. It makes life juicy and exciting, and sustains us through the hard times.
Yeah. Was there something interesting that you didn't think about that you learned through all the interviews?
I've learned that in some ways things haven't changed. When I was a young writer in LA and I experienced what I experienced, which was some not so fun stuff. For example, Patty Lynn is coming to the festival, and her book is called End Credits: How I Broke Up with Hollywood, and she's got a lot of the same stories. So navigating a creative field as a woman is just more difficult. There are definite, breakthrough artists, Greta Gerwig and others that you can point to and go, wow.
Right. But still, that barrier's up.
Yeah, for the top positions especially, that's where there's the inequity the most. Mm-hmm. And something that I talk about is that, as a writing coach, I'll get a phone call from a man, and he'll say, "This is going to be a bestseller." this what I have to tell you. You can't tell anyone else because it's going to change the course of fiction or whatever they're working on.
Okay.
And then most women will call me up and they'll say, "Yeah, I know. I got 2 PhDs and I did this groundbreaking work over there in Ireland and stuff, but no one's going to care what I have to say."
Mm.
That's the call I get weekly.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of a mission to lift women up.
I was going to ask how do we, this is probably a question, it might be too big to answer, but how do we change that? Like, is it just a matter of lifting women up, or is there anything else that everybody could play a part in?
I go back to the Guerrilla Girls, whose motto is to do one thing, and even if you fail at it, keep doing it,
Yeah.
and you're nipping away
Yeah.
at the barriers, because it does slowly change. And I feel like, for me, it's one person at a time. If I can get, one woman to, last week I convinced a woman to use her real name instead of like a JK something or the 2 initials.
The
She
full name,
wants to
yeah.
do fantasy. And I'm like, use your name.
Yeah.
That's her name. So one little piece at a time. And I think that, awareness, when you are in a position of power, it's the hardest thing. I don't know how it can happen, but, open the door and share some of the power, I think is part of the answer, but I don't know.
How do you change that mentality in the people that have that position? That I think if you look at, and I hate to head this direction, even if shortly or briefly, but you look in politics,
Right.
At some point, the people in power are going to have to give up power, even though they're holding on to it with a
Right.
death grip. So yeah, I think that power sharing is, at the very least, power sharing is a good way to do it, I would think.
I mean, my point of view is that you have to. There's a reason why they call it the Declaration of Independence, because they weren't asking anybody. So I think it's kind of the same thing. You're declaring this is what I deserve and this is what I should get,
Yeah.
and come from that place that this is where I stand.
And I'll accept nothing less.
Yeah, this is what I'm worth, and I don't think it's natural for people to say, okay, let me share this space.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's more natural is, what is that person doing sitting next to me?
Right.
And then you're
Right.
like, I don't know, I'm just not going anywhere.
Right. Yeah. I've struggled with trying to find my own place, and I know that there are plenty of people that have it harder than me, but not knowing where your place is very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And can actually chip away at your own motivation to keep going.
Well, I can, do you know I'm also a therapist for artists?
Yes. Yeah.
So even just sitting down with you initially, like I want to become your cheerleader, because I can hear in you like brilliance, and I kind of have this like intuitive sense that go, so I can hear it, I can see
I appreciate that. Yeah.
and then it's sort of like getting someone to start to own it.
Own it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I want you to go.
That's hard. Okay, I'll do that for my writing. I got it down for podcasting.
Okay.
Because now when people ask for my rates as a producer, I'm not shy
Good.
to throw out my professional rates, because I've earned that.
Yeah.
I've done enough
Yeah.
over the last decade in podcasting to prove my worth.
Yeah.
At first, I wasn't like that, though.
Right.
I was afraid to tell people a higher rate.
Right.
Because I didn't want to lose out on a possibility of getting a job or income.
Right.
So I totally understand that desire to get people to own
Mm-hmm.
their space.
Yeah.
And
it comes from my mom. Are we allowed to swear on the podcast?
heck yeah. Actually, you know what? Fuck yeah.
We call her Natalie fucking Freedman.
Yeah. I love that.
Because she just had this, like, with the chutzpah and the moxie, and there's not a school in this system that's going to work. I'm going to create one, or whatever it was she was doing. She was just going to do it. And this year she's on the panel. This made me so happy to put her on this panel called It's Never Too Late, because at 85 she got her first book deal.
Wow. That is inspiring.
Yeah.
So, okay, first of all, I have like 10 million
I know.
questions, new questions that I didn't already write down. Number one, this panel, do you know the time? Because I need to go.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. Yeah, because
I will look it up for you.
one of my biggest stresses lately, and I've been talking to my girlfriend about this, and I sat on the floor last night. She was taking a bath, and I sat on the floor, and I'm talking to her, and I'm just so stressed out about, am I really doing this? Am I really, at 48 years old, am I really just now starting to try to get a writing career going?
Yes.
Yeah. And I look at people like Judy Reeves and all these people that have published books, Anastasia Zadak, like all these people that have published these books, their first books later, and I hold on to that thought, but
yeah, that's why I love this panel, because it's filled with, Zoe Garamani's on it.
Oh, that's cool.
Because she switched genres. And then It's Never Too Late to Tell Your Story. Laura Engel is on it. And she, had a secret that she was harboring for 50 years and then told it in her book. So I'm a firm believer in It's Never Too Late. And are you doing this? Yes. Also, because now I know you.
Right.
And so
you have to push
on.
me now. Okay.
It's game on.
All right. Here we go.
I can't find where.
No, that's okay. So really quick, the festival itself, the San Diego Writers Festival, this is going to be April 6th. So this episode is going to come out the week prior to that. So you guys have a few days to gear up for it. But it's going to be April 6th. There's going to be all kinds of panels and speakers and interviews and tables and all kinds of things to highlight the writer community here in San Diego. Yeah.
Yes, we're putting
yes
San Diego on the literary map.
Good. I think I hope so, because the writing community here, this is going to be episode 55, and if you haven't figured it out yet, the writing community here is fascinating.
Yeah. Beautiful, huh?
It really is. It's welcoming, it's diverse, it's massive, and there's just something for everybody.
Yeah.
No matter where you are.
I agree.
So
but we've all kind of don't know each other. That's one of our missions when we started the festival, was my co-founder Jennifer Thompson and I. We were on the ground. We considered ourselves like little soldiers, going to this library, going to this program, teaching here, teaching there, UCSD and all that. And we would talk to one about the other, and no, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So we wanted a place where everyone would, unite and come together, and also we wanted to uplift the locals. So we have a really healthy mix of our local writers and people that are up and coming to incredibly established.
Oh, and they're incredibly established for sure. One person that I would love to have on the show is Troy Johnson. Do you know Troy?
Mm-mm.
He writes for like the food.
Oh, okay.
And I can't. All of a sudden, the name of the magazine just totally left my head. But he's been like a guest judge on cooking shows,
wow.
and like But I watch his stuff and I read his stuff, and I'm just like, this guy, And then there's Joey Day, and then there's like
Joey Day,
Jonathan Mayberry.
Joey Day is going to interview Matt Quirk.
I saw that.
I'm very excited. I hope I can make that one. I'm running around and doing a lot of interviews, but I'm really hopeful that I can make that one.
That's the thing about these festivals, is that there's always something good going on, which is a pro and a con.
Yes.
Because you're going to miss something good.
Yes.
But you're actually going to see something good as well.
Yes.
So I love that. All right. So April 6th.
April 6th, the way we love to pitch it is, it's 90 speakers, 40 events, 1 day, free.
Free.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you miss that? How do you not go to that?
I don't know. We'd have to get the word out.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying. I tell people about it all the time. I'm moderating a panel there and interviewing another writer, so I'm really looking forward to that. So I've been telling people about it, like, you got to go to this stuff. So I love it. And how many years has it been going on?
This is going to be our 5th year.
5th year.
Yeah.
That's great.
And we've had to seriously pivot because of COVID and just we
All
went
kinds of things.
online. Yeah, all kinds of things.
Yeah,
So
there are all kinds of reasons why these things will change and
yeah,
pivot over the years, but I'm glad it's still going.
me too.
Like there's another one, the book festival.
Mm-hmm.
I love that we have the book festival, we have the book crawl, we have
Yeah.
so many great things in San Diego, and this is just one of them, and I love it. So let's go back. I want to go back to your past, and I want to talk about you as a kid. What were some of the things you were reading and at the time, and were you writing also?
I think I loved Judy Blume.
Yeah.
Think that's what I was reading. My mother and father both loved books. We talked a little bit about this before.
Mm-hmm.
So they were often reading to me, reading aloud. Yeah, I think I was always writing.
Always writing.
I didn't know it,
Okay.
but I was. Oh, this is my favorite thing my mom ever did. This is about my son, though, but this will tell you kind of how I grew up. They were saying that my son, maybe had ADHD, and, then they were describing this was in a parent teacher
Mm-hmm.
meeting, and they were kind of being critical and saying that his mind was wandering and he would look off and it seemed like da da da. And my mom was taking notes for us, and she wrote down rich inner life.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
So are you a proponent of daydreaming?
Oh my gosh, more than ever now that I'm working on the creativity book.
Yeah.
It's the default network. Okay, so I've always said this. I've
Okay.
always said staring out the window counts.
Really? Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's always been my thing because it's part of writing and people don't consider it part of writing and they beat themselves up when they're not getting words on the page, but that is absolutely 100% part of writing. But now I have like the neuroscience to back it up a bit more.
Okay.
And it's the default network in our brain that is actively working. Even when we're not, it's still working.
I had somebody tell me, I want to say her name is Jessica Hilt, but I was in a writers group with her, and I want to say she told me that, even if you sit down for an hour and stare at a blinking cursor on an empty document,
Mm-hmm.
you're still writing.
Yeah.
You're processing, you're thinking,
Right.
you're working it through.
And then they've proven that that's part of the creative process is that you have to, there's this active time, and then there's when you go into the default network where connections are being made. Because you know how people will say things like, oh, I had to put it down and then I went and took a shower, or I took a walk, or it came to me while
Clean
I'm
the
chopping
apartment,
broccoli.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's because that's that default network. So I'm really trying to change the perception that it's only when it's words on the page.
Yeah. Do you believe in writer's block?
No, I don't think I do.
Yeah.
I believe that we get in our own way.
Okay.
I believe that I have like five laws of lightning, which I don't have here listed.
Okay.
I didn't put, but one of them is that the creative force, lightning is what I call the creative force. So lightning's always sending out a signal for you, like, to answer the phone. So, and it's never too late. Whatever age you are, whatever, it's never too late to pick up the phone, and it'll keep sending that signal. That's why if you step away from it and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, you'll still hear this like knocking on your soul.
Yep.
Right?
It'll wake you up in the middle of the night.
Absolutely. It's not going to leave you alone.
Right.
So it's always there. It's also there to help you. So you're not alone.
Mm.
And I think that's what some writers feel, is very isolated and alone. And this creative force, you can learn to talk to it and communicate and have a dialogue, and it helps you out.
Reminds me of the comic book The Flash.
Mm.
Because there's a force that he taps into.
Yes.
That's always there.
Yes.
And it's always waiting.
Yes.
And it's always available to him.
Yes.
And I like that thought.
Mm-hmm.
I this morning, I was sitting down to work on a new story, and I just kept looking at this one area, and I'd write, 100 words, and then I'd delete them all. And I'd write 100 words.
Why are you deleting?
I because it wasn't going the way I want. It was a feeling, I wanted the story to go a specific way, and when I tried to go that way, it was going in the direction I didn't like. Like I could feel it, like inside, that force going, this is the wrong way, bring it back, So I would delete it, and then I'd write more words, and I'd be like, okay, that's better, and I would write another 100 words, and I would delete that, and I'm like, nope, that isn't it. So for me, that's how I tap into that lightning. I know it's there. I can just grab onto it whenever I need to.
Yes.
And even if I don't like it, it's okay.
Yes.
So
do you want another tip?
Yeah, please.
It's to be like a monkey throwing spaghetti.
Oh.
So that when you sit down, it comes from when my son was little, and I was really stuck. I was writing, and I just I'm stuck. And even though I don't believe in it, I was overthinking. I was beating myself up. And then it was time for spaghetti, and my son and not exactly a rule follower, started throwing spaghetti.
Right.
And I don't know why, but I just threw it back, and we had this glorious spaghetti food fight. So much fun.
Actually.
I know.
I've always wanted to be in a food fight.
Oh, but like a 3-year-old who just it was great.
Just letting go.
Yeah. And my neighbor walked in, and she was like, what's going on here? Because there really was spaghetti everywhere. And I just looked at her. I'm just hanging out with my monkey throwing spaghetti. And after cleanup, and I probably cleaned up from that incident for a good 6 months. But after that night, I was in this different space. I was a monkey throwing spaghetti. And I have, ever since then, whenever I go sit down to write, I go into my monkey throwing spaghetti place, because the words, it's okay if they land imperfectly. I can change, I can edit, but I have to have that immense freedom when I'm first sitting down.
Yeah. And that the idea of just letting go and throwing it spaghetti is your way of just letting it out.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that not doing that is detrimental to a writer?
I think there are no rules.
Okay.
So I've worked with so many writers at this point that I look for what unlocks them and what gets them excited and what gets them jazzed. And it's different for different people. So do I have some rules that I love to follow and help people guide? Yes. But for example, someone was working on a memoir and she couldn't use the word I, which is very difficult when you're working on a memoir.
Oh, yeah, I would think, yeah.
So she started off by saying you or saying she, and this unlocked her to be able to tell the story. And then later we could go back and change it up. So I'm always looking for the doorways.
That's an interesting tactic to use.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really best used for memoir, or can that be used in other ways?
I think you can. Anything that gets you
going.
Anything that gets you connected to the force and feeling excited in that space.
Yeah.
And I think you might, I think it's fun to experiment with what does that for you.
Yeah.
I love the concept of artist dates that Julia Cameron writes about, and we don't remember to do that. But what if you did just take yourself to a museum or to someplace you've never been, and just look around, and then to pull out a pad of paper and start from there.
I just got back from a week-long road trip vacation. Went out to Grand Canyon, Zion National Park, and then our last night or two was in Vegas, which I could do without. But the amount of characters I could get from just sitting there and watching.
Yeah.
It was easy pickings.
Right.
So getting out, doing something, going to a place you've never been, I can see how beneficial that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned memoir, but you went to school for film writing.
Correct.
Do you still write film at all?
A little bit. I work on it with my husband. He's still writing and producing. I was working on a piece called Vodka Run, which I just thought would be hilarious because it was about, I started getting into the absurdity of these runs, and so I thought it would be really funny if there was a run where you stopped at different stations and drank vodka. and just what would happen, how it would devolve.
I would love to watch that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, yeah. Are they
Vodka
running
Road.
in a circle or
No, they I think like they have a whole path
a whole
that they
route?
go
Yeah,
through.
okay.
There's like a neon station and this station, but each station involves a level of vodka.
That's fantastic. I spent some time in Iowa, and they have something called Ragbri,
What's
which
that?
it's a bike ride from the one end of the state to the other, basically, and it goes over a course of what, a week or so, and there's like stops along the way to get like pork and all these
Oh,
things,
how
and
funny.
just can't imagine just go, oh, I got to ride 50 miles today on a belly full of pork,
Oh, how
like.
funny.
So it just, that when you said that, it reminded me of Ragbri.
Yeah.
So that's good. What drew you from film to other kinds of writing?
So really did love being in film school because it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. I look back on that time. If I could just live a few days in that space again,
Mhm.
writing a paper about movies, like that was the
Who
job.
could beat that?
Oh God. And the characters. I mean, we were a small cohort of 23 people, 24 people, and everyone was a character. So you could drop in, just sit down and be like, what are we talking about? Loved it so much. And then after I graduated, so who's my husband now, he dumped me. And I went into this ridiculous state where I didn't want to get out of bed. And then I wrote a play about that called Two Goldsteins on Acid.
I think I saw the title of this, and I was like, I got to ask about it.
So, so he came to the play, and we, yada yada yada.
Yeah, yeah.
We ended up getting back together later, and that's what we eventually turned into a film that became Playing Mona Lisa.
Okay.
So we did stay in that. I stayed in that world for quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you like it?
No.
No. Okay.
I mean, there's certain aspects of it. There's fascinating people, but it had a cult-like feeling to it. And everyone is shooting for one thing, and there wasn't a lot of genuine conversation or things that I really craved.
Mm-hmm.
I really craved depth, and I craved knowing people. And, for example, you'd go to a party, and everyone was kind of always maneuvering in a party, not to sit down and get to know someone, but what can this person do for me? And what's their usefulness? Okay, you've outlived your usefulness. I'm moving on to the next. So there was always a sense of maneuvering. And there wasn't a lot of, you're fine just the way you are. Let's nurture and be joyful about life just for now.
Right.
If I get to the next place. Having said that, I did have like the most incredible writing group of my life. I haven't talked about this in a long time.
Yeah.
So her name was Hesper Anderson, and she wrote Children of a Lesser God. And
I know that. Why do I know that?
Oh, God. I think it won an Academy Award. It was a beautiful film.
Yeah.
Marley Matlin.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So she was a gorgeous writer, and I met her at USC, and she pulled me into her group. And, to be around such amazing minds, she pulled the wackiest of the wackiest together. And we read, each week, and it was the first time I was like, oh, home.
Yeah.
And I think I've been chasing that ever
feeling.
since.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you haven't really found it outside of that group, huh?
I think that's what I'm trying to do with the festival.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How close are you getting?
Close.
Yeah.
I feel that feeling when I walk into the rooms, and I have my own writing groups where I feel it.
Yeah.
But there was a certain energy of like, we're gonna go do it.
I was gonna ask, what does it take for a group to have that feel for people? Is it the motivation behind it all? Like, what does it need?
I think it needs, people who are unabashedly themselves.
Yeah.
Just going for it.
Yeah.
That's what was happening. And there were problems and struggles, and
we're artists.
Yeah, exactly. But to watch people that were just going for it and just, this is who I am, and this is, and just, the funky places that us writers had to live to be able to live. This one guy, he had a house where like the toilet was kind of above his bedroom. It was such a small place that you turned a corner, you just turned your body, and then there's the kitchen, and then you know, and we had some of the best discussions in this crazy
It's a
tiny
tiny
little
place.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. I love those groups like that. I love groups like that. I did though want to go back really quick to
Yeah.
something you were talking about with the type of mentality of people in film school. It seemed,
Mhm.
was that just L.A. or is that film school in general?
I don't know. My son, I can't even believe this. My son is going to SDSU next year and he's going to major in film. So I think we'll find
We'll
out.
find out. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, LA at this moment in time, I've been reading Ed Zwick's book,
Yeah.
and it seems like his film school experience was very rigorous and intense, and they really put you, it was like a cauldron where they put you through so much, so like a pressure cooker.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we didn't have that.
You didn't have that. No, it
Mm.
was kind of loosey goosey.
Well, we were also undergraduate. I think if you go and graduate, it's a different ball game.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I've been working on trying to get into grad school for writing for fiction specifically, but it's expensive and very hard to get into these things.
And I
these
don't
days.
know if you need it.
Well, that's what I'm learning. As I'm going through all this, I'm like, do I really need it, or can I get it just through groups and constantly talking to people
Yeah.
and putting it out
Great
there?
teachers, like
Yeah.
I got so much of my understanding of story sort of outside of school, through master storytellers and through just, trial and error, talking to people. I don't know that anyone needs to go to even to film school.
Film school.
I
Yeah.
mean, if you're going to do something technical,
Of course. Right.
but I think there's lots of ways to do it. And sometimes some of those graduate school programs really rip you apart when you're trying to find your voice and you're trying to have confidence. I've heard of some that are wonderful as well, but I don't think it's a necessity.
Well, especially with the there's pros and cons to this, but especially with the advent of online stuff.
Right.
I can sit and take a Clarion West course if
Yeah.
I want, from sitting right here.
Right.
I can take a class or a seminar easily,
Yeah.
if I could afford it at least. I shouldn't say easily. But yeah, do I really need to drop tens of thousands of dollars in an education when I can just do it online or find the people myself?
Yeah.
So it's the world is changing, I think, with that.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm starting to discover. With the writing coaching, is there one piece of advice that you found surprises people?
What a good question. No one has ever asked me that. It's such an individual process that I think people are, when working with me, I think they're most surprised by my spirituality,
Okay.
in that I'm kind of in touch with something else
Mhm.
going on that I tap into that I don't even know exactly how to explain it to you right now. Some people are really open to it, but I do kind of connect to something else to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you tried without connecting to that something else in the past?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can absolutely, I've got now so much information in my brain. I have a handout for everything. That's why you don't have to go to graduate school. I literally give you handouts for everything.
Everything, yeah. Okay.
So I can go to a kind of, a technical place.
Okay.
Especially screenwriting is so technical. Like, things are supposed to happen on certain pages, whereas with other writing, there's a lot more leeway. But I almost can't help it now with just, I can, connect with what that person's spirit is wanting to achieve and wanting to, and so something's helping me out.
There's something that is out something external that's out there that you've internalized in a way and can tap into.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, those things are kind of hard to explain, so I get it.
Yeah, I don't know if I have words for it, but that definitely surprises people.
Is there something about the craft of writing that you think writers tend to forget?
I love the concept of plotting and pouring, which is it's a combination of, yeah, think it through, but then also be ready for those, moments when you can just free write and capture it. And I love to do a mixture of go zooming in close and like, okay, what is this? What's coming to you?
Mm-hmm.
When you're connected to that force and it's just flowing out, you're in a state of flow. I love
Yeah.
state of
Oh,
flow.
I am. It's one of my favorite modes to be in.
And I'm working on these tools to help people get into them, get
Okay.
into those states, because I think that's people get confused. Okay, flow's great, but how do I get there?
Yeah.
That's what I love to teach people about. Looking back at the whole picture to get a sense of is it elegant? I love it when there's a story is elegant or it has some symmetry or some imbalance,
Yeah.
whatever you want it to have.
Yeah.
Um, and then also, so I kind of think of it like being a pirate. So like you start off with a map as a pirate. You have like the map and it has a big red X, and it's all cool. But then when you get in the sea on the ship, like storms happen, lots of stuff goes wrong, scurvy, you got all this stuff. And so you end up taking a totally different route. But it's cool that you still mapped it out.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to be on the boat navigating it as it's taking you where it wants to go. And then sometimes taking a step back and going, okay, is this where I want it to go? Is this what I like, what's developing? So I love that interplay.
Yeah. When do you do that? Do you do that during the writing, during the editing? Like, how do you know when to adjust and when to keep going?
I think always keep going.
Okay.
And, I think if you're meeting with somebody like me, it's like fun to talk about, okay, let's take a step back. But I mostly go with the rule with just don't do anything that stops you.
Okay. Okay.
Just get it all down. I love it when people plot stuff out, but so often that really stops people.
I had and I've mentioned this previously in this podcast. I have a one of my half novels that I've written. I have a 13-page outline for it,
Mm-hmm.
and I started writing it, and I got about 60,000 words in, and it was just and I was following it away from the outline that I had written because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, this is where the story's going. But then I found that it got to a point where I didn't like where the story went.
Hmm.
So I decided to just put it down for a little while, and I'm going to have to come back to it with a fresher mind because every time I kept coming back to it and trying to get past that point or trying to rewrite it, I found myself just completely lost.
So are you, number one, are you sure that you didn't like it, or were you being overly critical? That's one thing I said, that's my grandmother says,
No,
put it in
of
your
course.
kepi.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you could be just being overly critical and it might be working. I've often found that writers are not the best judge,
Yeah.
if you're overly critical of yourself. And then, do you have your own writing group?
I kind of do, and I kind of wish I did. I know I have a group chat with Leslie Ferguson, Kelly
Oh, she's
Bowen,
great. Yeah.
and Hillary Broman,
Okay.
and it's our sub chat. We call it Submiss. 'Cause
Right.
every Tuesday we submit. We go online and we submit a poem or a story to be published, and
Mm-hmm.
we use that. And we'll talk about craft stuff about it. As for a writing group, no, I don't. However, I am taking a class at Grossmont on short stories just to
Mm.
be in a group of other people
Mm-hmm.
and to share writing and get feedback.
I think you might dig a writing group.
I would.
Like, I really dig professionally led groups
Mm-hmm.
because the person that's in charge of the group, if they're a good leader, has your story in mind
Mm-hmm.
and is keeping the scope of your full story in mind. And then we also give that to the group, and the group has that aware. Okay, we think this is working, but we're not sure. So as he's reading the pages, pay attention.
Yeah.
Are you engaged? Are you getting confused or whatever?
How do people find writing groups? Do they form them? Do they?
Well, that's a really good question. For a while we were pairing writing groups with authors, and it became too big a task.
Mhm.
But uh, I have a couple of writing groups. Tracy Jones, who is my best friend since I was 16, and it's her birthday tomorrow.
Well,
Happy birthday!
happy belated birthday by the time this
Yes,
comes out.
exactly. She has some writing groups, Writers Inc.
Mm-hmm.
They have some ongoing writing groups.
Mm-hmm.
So recommendations, like you mentioned, Judy Reeves. She has some.
Right. Yeah, I've seen hers about.
Rich Farrell, Mark Clements.
Do you feel that the best writing groups are ones that you pay to get into?
Generally, people will show up if there's more
If they paid for
accountability.
it,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think they're going to be a little more although I just had the word in my head, but a little more into it, a little more invested
Yeah.
if they pay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good way of looking at it. I sometimes I can't afford the writing groups.
Almost everyone that I know gives scholarships.
Scholarships. Okay.
Yeah.
So look for those.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just ask.
Or just
because we've all been and are and in that spot. And I teach a memoir certificate class, and we always have one or two spots that are scholarships.
Scholarship. Okay. I know I've talked to Kristen Fogel about that sort of thing, where it's just like, hey, I can't afford it. How can I get into this somehow?
Yeah.
So I know you're right. If you just ask, a lot of people are going to be willing to at least help you somehow.
Yeah.
To get into that. Because I think they're also invested in you, knowing if you're willing to say, hey, look, I really want to do this.
Right.
They can tell that you're invested in it.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important thing. Getting back to film, I know you've worked as a script doctor. What is that? I know what it is, but I want other people to know.
So script doctors, when, a script's not working for some reason, and they would, call up and say, hey, can you look at, I used to love to do dialogue. Dialogue is something that came more easily. So can you look at the dialogue? Can you look at this one scene's not working? So you offer your 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cents. However many cents that
your
they
want,
you bring it to the table.
Okay. Do you have to have a certain level of confidence in your writing to do that sort of thing?
To be a script doctor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Where does that confidence come from, you think?
I think a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hold on to certain moments that I think gave me some, people probably didn't even know, but, just a moment with Marlo Thomas.
Marlo Thomas?
Thomas. Oh my gosh.
No, I had to think about it myself.
Oh God, that's terrible. I hold on to different moments that, because I'm notoriously not good at taking in compliments. I'll just block them and say, yeah, but this is what's really wrong with me.
Right.
But there's a few times they've passed the barrier.
Yeah.
And I hold on to those things. And I think having a group around you, I have groups that run for 10 years.
Wow.
So like Anastasia Zidek, she's been in my group. We met at UCSD when I was teaching there and said, do you want to start a group? And she said, sure. And it's been going now for 10 or 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Because it's very hard to keep those together, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so much fun to watch people go all the way through producing their work. And then get on to the next thing. So, and it becomes a bit of a family.
It's also, it's inspiration, it's motivation, just seeing other people go through it and find that next level.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I want to get there. How do I get there?
Right.
I want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So I think that you're right. These writing groups, they're important. And remembering the good things. I as I was struggling the last couple of days, my girlfriend's like, hey, you are moderating panels. You are highly involved in the community here. Like, you're doing just fine.
Yeah.
And it's hard to remember that stuff. You know? And it's good to be reminded of it. So yeah, I can see how that would build up a little bit of confidence.
Yeah, I think, the reading of your stuff, people bring stuff to read and critique, and at first their hands are shaking, and it's just like, I don't know. And then you start to realize, wait a second, this got a really good response. I can do this. I think I can do this. So it builds your confidence piece by piece.
Yeah. I had in this class I'm taking. We have prompts, and we're submitting stories, and I got feedback from the students, and I'm like, cool, but I want to get feedback from the teacher,
Mm-hmm.
who's got a master's in this stuff. I want to get feedback. And I got the story back, and he's like, it's really hard to find something to critique, but here's one
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I was like, I'll take it,
Right.
like the good and the bad, and
Yeah.
that reminded me that, okay, you're on the right track
Mm-hmm.
with this stuff. So those sorts of things are really helpful.
Yeah.
So one thing that I have had people ask me a lot is how I know a poem or story is done.
Mm.
Like that's one thing for me that it's kind of hard to answer. I have my answer, but is what's your personal way of knowing when something you've written is done?
I never feel like it's
You never
done,
feel
and
like
I
it's done.
have to
Okay, good.
let
Then I'm
it
not the
go
only
no
one.
matter what.
Okay.
Like what was talking about it with we did the play A Jewish Joke, and it's just I don't ever get that feeling. I've never once gotten. So what I have to do instead is say, good enough.
Good enough. Yeah. Yeah. GED. Good enough, dude.
Yeah, there's some lot of great stuff in here, and you know, here you go.
Here it is. It's
Yeah.
done. Are you tempted to go back after it's out there and edit and clean up?
No, I'm actually
No.
pretty good at letting it be what it is, but
Okay.
that moment of actually, you know, saying done, um, I've never really had that.
Yeah. It it's it, it's too frightening and too powerful thing of a thing to say. To say, "Yep, this is done." Like, is it really?
Well, I think that's, when you get used to, um, I see it as an ongoing dialogue. So it's what I have to say is done for this moment, but I know that I'm going to keep having this dialogue about this issue, and it'll show up other places in different works.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've worked with to help me to release things
To
into
release
the
things.
wild.
Yeah, it's so hard. I know when I write a poem, I've gotten a lot better at feeling like, okay, I think I've gotten out what I needed to get out, and I think I've said all I can say. There have been
Mm-hmm.
times where I've noticed that I will say too much, and once I hit that point, then I go, okay, I think I might be done with this. I just got to find the ending.
Yeah. And I can tell when a writer is making lateral changes. They're sort of spinning. They've
Mm-hmm.
done everything they can do, and then you need some more eyes on it. But I do have a process, like when I work with people, that pretty much gives us, we're working on it together, and then we go through the beta reading, and then we
Mm-hmm.
use the notes from that, and then polishing. Usually those steps are pretty damn good
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get to a place where we feel like, good enough. Because generally, where it goes next, they might also want to, have thoughts about it.
Do you think certain limitations as far as word count can help with that?
With
With knowing something
is
has to be
done,
done. Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
I've tried writing micro poems,
Yeah.
and I'm like 25 words or less. I can't go any more than that.
Right.
So that has helped me say, okay, well, this is, if it's not done, it's as done as it's going to be.
Right. I think I like to do things that are like those micro things so that you can get the feeling of accomplishment and pressing send
Mm-hmm.
along with the long, so people that are working on a memoir, let's say, if they can also be doing poems or,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's really helpful, or short stories, to be able to complete something. And the thing I always like to say is that, things do end. It's not a forever, you know, your
Thing.
book will
Yeah.
be completed. It
Yeah.
will be completed. There will be time that it will go out into the world.
Yeah.
It feels like it when you're in the middle that it will never end. But it does.
It does end.
It
Yeah.
does. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
tell you that.
As scary as that is,
Mhm.
on both ends, that
Yeah.
it will end, and also it doesn't feel like it ever going to end.
Yeah.
It does end. And I think that's a good point that you made. Submitting something and just saying, okay, it's done.
Yes.
I'm gonna move. I have to move on. I don't have a
Yes.
choice now.
Yeah.
That's helped me. And when I go through the submission process, and I'm researching publications, and I'm doing all that stuff, and I'm trying to look at my poems or stories and go, will this fit here? Well, is this a good place for me even? At some point I have to say, Adam, just submit and move on with your day.
Yeah.
You can't spend enough.
There's a certain energy. So I like to call it, I know I sound like I've got a thing for everything, but I've been thinking about it like it's a step and toss. So when I'm trying to decide which direction to go, I'm sort of looking at maybe two stepping stones.
Okay.
And so I go where which one has the most expansive feeling? Like, do I want to write this or do I want to do that? This feels really expansive and fun.
Yeah.
So I step there. And then I toss one pebble in the direction of my dreams. If you keep doing that over and over again, where do I feel most expansive? Toss the pebble. Eventually, those ripples do end up meaning something. It adds up. Feels like it doesn't maybe for a while, but it does.
Well, it's almost like with those pebbles, you're building a path in a way.
Yes.
And that sort of thing is it keeps you going. It's one, even if it's a little step.
Yeah.
It's a step closer. So I can see how that would be really useful and helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I like that metaphor of using that. So there's a saying out there that to break the rules, you have to know them first. Are there any rules, or is there one rule about writing that is not okay to break?
Well, right now I'm so steeped in the world of memoir where it feels like every 10 seconds someone's like doing something that could never be done. Like, now we're fictionalizing memoirs. We're like, okay, now what do you want me to do with that? Like, what do you want me to
What do you expect out of that? Yeah.
I mean, I'm writing from the perspective of my dog is happening. So one rule that you can't break, is that the question? That's hard because I'm such a rule breaker, but let's see. Is there one rule?
Is there one rule you try not to break? Let's make it personal.
One rule I try not to break. To stop, I think.
Yeah.
I never stop.
Never stop. Yeah.
I never.
It just goes back to that previous thing. There sometimes there is no end. There's as close to the end as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you try not to stop. Really, you just.
Yeah, everything is learning. Everything is growing, even if it's something that you think took you down a completely different path.
Yeah.
It'll inform something else.
Are there rules that you should break?
If you're brand new, I would take the time to learn the rules.
Yeah.
I did not want to learn the rules in film school, and I got lots of flack for why aren't you learning the rules? And they were right.
Mm-hmm.
I was very much into dialogue and character, but I didn't want to pay attention to the story, and my being received suffered because of it. And so when I learned, I learned what the rules are, and that it was not a repressive thing, but it was actually organic. That story came from, it's in our bones, storytelling. There's a reason why it, is the way that it is. And I love the artists that know the rules, and you can see it. Like even Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
That has perfect structure.
Yeah.
Perfect structure. But it's completely bonkers, out of the box, the characters and what they're doing. So that's a really good example of someone who really knows story and knows character development, but they've taken it somewhere else.
For me, Quentin Tarantino is a master storyteller.
Yeah.
The way he lets things unfold
on
their own.
Yeah.
In a way, even without stepping outside of the rule box, so to speak. There's another movie out there called Memento. I don't know if you've seen that one. Like that one is brilliant, that it starts at the end and works its way to the beginning.
Right.
But the whole story is there, and by the time you get to the end, you're like, yeah, it was a full, complete story, and I understood all of it.
Right.
So yeah, I can see.
Mostly, I find people really struggle with wanting to learn the rules.
Yeah.
And it's a step that I don't think you want to skip, because there's so much history and juice and brilliance in those, in this path, and what we've also come to expect.
Yeah.
I just believe there's a reason why most, the hero's journey is something that we study, because it's innately within us to start from an unknown place, a world we don't know, entering into a different world and having tests and struggles and facing what we fear most, and then returning to the village with what we've learned. I
Yeah.
think we naturally do that. So I think it's capturing us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can see that. I love the idea of breaking rules. I've always been a rule breaker, but in hindsight, I'm glad I followed the rules on other things,
Mm-hmm.
because I now know what can be stretched and bent a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and what needs to stay.
Yeah.
Like, I may be an independent contractor, but I do still have to pay my taxes. I have the estimated quarterly payments still have to go out.
Right, right.
Um,
Well, I mean, I guess to go back to your question about one thing, I having taken so many people, so many writers' works through beta readers,
mhm.
I can say that one thing that comes up again and again is a character arc. And if it tends to be not satisfying, if the characters or if it's a memoir, the person didn't grow and change in some way. People
Yeah.
want to feel, why am I reading this? What's the point of this? What is this, author trying to say? And returning to character arc is almost always the answer. Almost always.
One of the critiques I get with my stories is that they felt like the ending wasn't earned yet.
Oh, interesting.
And that was because of the character moving
Yeah.
through the story, and I'm always like, that's for whatever reason I struggle a little bit with that, is making sure the character earned that ending.
Usually that's a 75% mark issue.
70. I must be missing something. Please tell me more.
I do have a plotting tool that I use, but
Okay.
to help diagnose that kind of stuff. But it's kind of like around that time when the main character is sort of solidifying all the knowledge and things, the way they've been challenged,
Okay.
the way they've had to face their flaws, and they're regrouping at that moment to then go forward into the last quarter, sort of like that mission.
Oh, I see.
And
Yeah.
you earn that because you've now shifted. Now you take all that knowledge and what you've learned by falling on your face.
And now what do you do with it?
Now what do you do with it?
Okay. Oh man, I'm gonna go back and
Does that
rewrite so
help?
many stories. I have so
I
many
mean,
that I
that's
never
one
read.
way of doing it.
Yeah. No, I mean that's actually a really good way. I didn't look at it that way. There's that three act structure.
Mhm.
That whole after the denouement, like,
Right.
well, now what? So I can appreciate that. Man, I love this podcast. I love talking to other writers. I learned so much about my own writing. Are there any myths about writing that you want to dispel?
I love the one that we talked about before, that you're only writing when there's words on the page. That is one of the big ones.
Yeah.
Myths.
One of the ones that I think bothers me the most is when I tell people I'm a writer and they think it's easy.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Now I'm down. I'm getting what you're throwing down. Yes, everyone thinks you sit down and it just, if you're a writer, it just flows out. Why are you working on this book for so long? When is it going to be done? And there's not a real understanding of the creative process. And then people beat themselves up because they think, why wasn't I able to just sit down and it all just flowed out perfectly?
Mm-hmm.
And I really have a problem with the people that come through town that do, write your book in 48 hours.
I call that the Joyce Carol Oates syndrome, because I watched her masterclass and she was like, every short story should be written in 48 hours. And I'm like, because you're Joyce fucking Carol Oates, like, that's not fair. Do you want to do my day job?
Right.
Do you want to pay my bills so I
Right.
can write my story in 48 hours?
Right.
But I mean, I guess I understand the idea behind it, but 48 hours is a short amount of time.
Well, I don't know if you know that it should be related to time. I think we put this arbitrary amount of time that we think something should take.
Yeah.
And then what we're removing is that joy of being in the creative process, which
Right.
is the whole juice of life.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It is. It's also the bitter juice of life sometimes.
Yes, it could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could be, but I think there's a lot of ways to add more of the joy of it. Like, that's what I really love about the festivals. There's the community.
Yeah.
It brings you into that space of we're all just reaching and creating and trying and.
When I went to the writer symposium to
Mhm.
see Nick Hornby and Susan Orloff speak, was that Susan Orloff? Did he speak with her? Or
Oh no, that's
Susan Orlean.
Susan Orlean.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Ooh, I just mixed up Judith Orloff
Judith Orloff
and Susan Orlean.
Yeah.
But anyway, when Nick Hornby and Susan Orlean were talking, they were saying some things that I was like, wait, I already know this stuff. Like, as a writer, like, I already know this. And then it made me, as we were leaving, I was like, they're just like us.
Yeah.
They may be these fantastic writers, and I love them, but they're just like us in the end. They struggle with this stuff, and they have the same
absolutely. I mean, I've worked with writers that are brand new to writers that are top of their game, and they still come up with it's the blank page, and okay, so I did it last time, but will I be able to do it again? I'm such a has-been, or whatever is going through their mind.
Yeah.
Absolutely, they're struggling with it.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to remember sometimes that
Mm-hmm.
just because they have that name doesn't mean they don't struggle.
Right.
And it's a good reminder that they're out there. You mentioned you saw, speaking of Judith Orloff, you saw her there.
Judith Orloff is coming to the festival.
Coming to the festival.
Yeah, that's why I just read her book.
Who was it that you saw at the writers' symposium?
Oh, the one that pissed me off.
The one that pissed you off. Yeah.
Elizabeth Gilbert.
Elizabeth Gilbert. Right. Okay. I gotta know. What was it?
Well, she's probably completely right, but she was talking about how the power lies within the people that are the most relaxed person. She was talking about how, and she talked about women, what you need to do is relax.
Okay.
And, I don't know, it
didn't sit well. Huh?
It didn't sit well.
Yeah. What did it make you feel? Not to get into a therapeutical conversation or anything, but
I think I think she was doing it with humor, but I think it didn't give a sense of how one does that. She had this understanding of women kind of doing everything with spinning plates and everything, trying to keep everything afloat or juggling, and I just thought it was a really sort of simple thing to say.
Okay.
But she, she's right. She's right. And she also was very honest about how she struggles with it and continues to struggle with it.
I think as long as they're honest that hey, look, this is a struggle, but this is how I feel. Like that sort of tempers it a little bit.
I think it pissed me off because that's what I have to do.
Mm. So you didn't want to admit it, that you have to do it.
I mean, I'm still mad about it.
You're still mad. And it was weeks ago.
It was
months
weeks ago. Absolutely. I'm still like, Elizabeth Gilbert.
We writers, we take our writing very seriously.
Yes.
When we're told that we have to do something we don't want to do.
That's true.
It's kind of hard medicine to swallow.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
I always know that when I get that, upset about something, it's exactly the direction I have to walk in.
When I don't know if you're the same, but when I get edits and critiques, I refuse to accept the feelings I get from it within the first 24 hours of receiving it.
Yeah.
Because at first I'm like, well, you're all just wrong.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, I'm like, well, actually, they're all right.
Yes.
I see now the problems.
Yes.
So we get emotionally attached to these things and our profession.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and it can be trouble when we get critiques. But we have to remember that it's just a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
We just if we just give it the 24-hour rule,
right?
We'll come back to it, and they're probably right, or at least 75% right.
Right.
I learned that through So Say We All.
Oh, yeah.
Great
organization.
Exactly, yeah. And, there are stories I would get feedback from it, and at first I'd be really pissed off, but then I'm like, oh, yeah, that actually makes sense the more I think about it.
And they're going to be there. They're going to talk about how to perform your story, which is such an important skill, and we don't, as writers, naturally know that as a skill.
Well, Ted Washington told me that he would only publish my book if I got out there and read poetry.
Oh, wow.
And his reasoning was because I would be the best person to be able to sell that book.
Wow.
And it made sense. And I
Mm-hmm.
hated it. And now I'm out there and I love performing poetry.
Oh, great.
I get up I was inspired by like people like Chris Van Noy
Mm-hmm.
and Rudy Francisco
Mm-hmm.
and Anthony Blacksher and like all these people and Carla Cordero.
Yes.
Like
she's getting an award.
good.
Yeah.
She deserves all the awards.
Yeah, I agree.
So like, but seeing them, it was like, okay, like that's something that I think is part of being an artist in general, is getting out there and being able to present or perform our work.
Have you seen Gil Sotu?
Yes, I loved.
So
I had him on the podcast.
He's the best.
Yeah.
And he kicks off every festival because he just infuses this spirit. It's like we're all go to church. And
he is the best.
Yeah.
At it. Yeah, he's and it seems like whenever I've seen him open a ceremony, the keynote, it's just like all right, like I have so much energy, and I sometimes I'll go just to see him,
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
I know other cool things are happening, but I want to see Gil Sotu.
Absolutely.
He's fantastic at that. So I think that's
he's our poet in residence.
Poet in residence, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is a poet in residence?
For us, it's an honor that anything that we do, he's gonna kick it off. He also does the when we do the memoir showcase, he comes and he kicks it off, and so we want to just nurture him and help to amplify his voice, and he gives back so much.
He does. He's amazing in writing and community.
Yes,
like he's just a very powerful person to be around and to listen to.
Agree
as well. So once a writer, I want to talk a little bit about voice. Once a writer finds and establishes their voice, would it be considered sort of a detriment to their style even to keep expanding, or can that actually help them be a better writer?
I mean, I always think of it as like being on the growing edge of life, is that you're kind of always expanding. So your voice, when you start to really believe in yourself and believe in your voice, it can really take you to some wild places. If you start to practice free writing, where you're just your voice just down on the page, get into the monkey throwing spaghetti space, and you're gonna let it out, you'll be shocked where it goes.
Yeah. Do you think that's with all writing, or are there certain areas where it's good to just kind of maintain that path?
Well, I think in, like, for example, like Joey Day or Matt Coyle, they're coming in, so they have the voice of their protagonists and what the readers are coming for a certain series, what they come to expect. So they kind of do stay in a certain lane, but I still think they do kind of find pockets and places to go. But that's one of the reasons I also love the Never Too Late panel, when she's going to talk about switching genres, because your voice is still showing up, but in a different way.
Yeah. That switching genres must be difficult. Like, I know people who write, kid lit, and then they'll write young adult, and then they'll write a memoir, and it's just like that changing. It's almost like new mindsets entirely in a way.
It could be, sometimes we're telling the same story, but just,
a different way.
in different venues.
Yeah, our audience probably plays a big factor in that as well.
Yeah.
What do you think, in a more general, broader sense, what do you think the writing world needs the most right now?
Nurturing, support. Because I do think, I happen to believe, this is going to sound nuts, but I happen to believe that if everyone was connected to their creativity and did their writing or whatever, I think we would have far fewer conflicts. Right now we're in a state of, there's a lot of angst, there's a lot of anger, people wanting to be heard and express themselves, and they're doing it in this very angry way. If they were more connected, if they felt supported and they felt seen and heard in these other ways, that's my dream for the world. So if you're in a place to support, to sponsor people that are crazy enough to say we're going to put on a festival or we're going to do a podcast, or you know, if you're in a position to nurture someone, nurture them.
Nurture them. Yeah, yeah. That's really important to know that you're not alone and you can do it.
Yeah.
And that's hard right now, I think.
Yeah, and the community, I love to see when everybody gets together, and often it's a few people that are helping make that happen financially,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it's spreading to hundreds of other souls that are. It's been really cool to see people give back.
Yeah.
People that have just been changed by the experience, whatever it was, that are showing up for other people.
Yeah. Yeah. I do some podcast producing for Conrad Prepis Foundation.
Oh yeah.
And they give a lot back to especially the San Diego community in the arts.
Well, we pay a lot to them
Yeah.
because we have our memoir showcase.
Oh, yeah.
At the yeah. So that's how I think of them, but I'm sure you're right.
Well, the whole far I always get this one wrong. Far South Border North grant that's out there. They're a big player in giving money for that, and I think when there's more groups out there that can,
yes,
and they do,
yeah,
that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Because I know I've met several people who are recipients of that, and then what happens is that dollar that they get, a good chunk of it is going to go to another artist they know.
Right.
Yeah. So that sort of thing is really helpful, and I think it would be useful to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, last question.
Yes.
We'll wrap up with this one. I always ask this one. So, and I love the answers I get. But if there was one book or movie or song or anything creative you wish you wrote, what would it be?
Wings of Desire.
Wings of Desire. Why does that sound familiar?
I was just reading in Judith Orloff's book that she loved it, so it's freshly on my mind. But it was a movie about it takes place in Berlin, and it's an angel who's sort of watching from above, who decides to enter a body and experience being human, and he falls in love, and it's just such a gorgeous piece of work. Also, what was the series? Recently there was a series, not Succession, but the White Lotus.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
White Lotus.
Yeah.
That I would have been so proud to write, because
Yeah.
I love what that captured. So those are my two biggies right now.
So what is it about those that that drew you to that response?
Well, for Wings of Desire, I think it really is speaking to our human experience, and to what it means to just be in the moment, and
Yeah.
to, even when you have troubles and struggles and this and that, to still take the joyous, incredibly valuable experience of having a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I remember from the movie. For The White Lotus, just the satire of human beings, the absurdity of what, when money comes into play, and how it distorts, people's personalities, and how some people are so incredibly self-absorbed and don't even see other people in their world. I just thought it was such a brilliant take on that.
I was talking with I know I mentioned her a lot. I was talking with my girlfriend recently about tall people and how tall people aren't going to like this. How they're pretty oblivious.
Yeah.
To a lot of people around them. They're like truck drivers.
Right.
So we were at this mutual friend ice cream shop here in South Park. Go there, fantastic ice cream. And we're in line, and she was looking at the board, and a tall dude just kind of stepped right in front of her. And it was just like, and he didn't even notice. And he probably wasn't doing it maliciously in any way.
Yeah.
But they just didn't get it. We were walking down the sidewalk, and there was this really big, tall dude walking next to somebody else. and we got in a single line, and he just kept going side by side, and it was just like if I had kept going, he would have knocked me over, and he
Wow.
probably subconsciously knew that. Now I know this is a bad theory, but it's like that sort of thing, like there's some people that just seem oblivious
Yeah.
to their surroundings.
Yeah.
My theory is it's tall people, but
Can I bring up some of the people?
please
at
do.
the
Yeah,
festival?
let's talk about the festival real quick. So this is going to be April 6th. By the time you hear this full episode, we've got about 4
Dear
days.
Lord. Okay, there's so
So-
much. Well, I want to bring up, I'm really excited to interview Ed Zwick. And he, if you don't know his name, his work, you'll know it. He
Yeah.
did 30 something and My So-Called Life in the TV World, and he did Glory and Blood Diamond, and what are the other ones? There's like 7 or 8. Anyway, he's won I think 8 Academy Awards, and
And no surprise either.
he's
'Cause-
brilliant.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
brilliant. So his career, someone who's moved really deftly from writing into directing into producing, and everything he puts his hands on just is gold. So I'm really excited. The film geek in me is just
I bet.
can't wait to talk to him and reading his book. It's called Hits, Flops, and Other Illusions, which I love.
Okay.
It's really, really entertaining and juicy and insightful as a writer. If you're a writer, it's like a must read just because he drops knowledge. And then Judith Orloff, another person that I'm really excited to interview, but for totally different reasons, because she's the one that wrote The Genius of Empathy. That's her latest book. And she's really talking about what it means to have empathy for yourself,
Oh yeah.
which we don't often focus on.
Right.
But it's broken into 3 parts, and the other parts are about having empathy for others and empathy for our world and how to maneuver. Writers tend to be very sensitive creatures, and so she really has practical information about taking care of these sensitive souls. So I'm just delighted with her. And then Anita Morjani, she is another brilliant person. I've heard her speak several times, and I'm just so excited that she said yes. She really became famous from her first book called Dying to Be Me, she actually had cancer and was dying. And she had a near-death experience and came out of it and was healed. And
Wow.
she has such a powerful story and such a powerful message about owning your own path
Mm-hmm.
and living authentically, which is sort of a buzzword, but it's just she talks about it in such a gorgeous way. You walk out of her talk going, I gotta do it.
Yeah,
I gotta
yeah,
do it. I gotta. And then Joey Day. We talked about him. Who's going to be on a wonderful mystery panel with Matt Coyle, who I love to pieces. And Joey Day is also going to later interview Matt Quirk, who wrote The Night Agent. And that was a book that became a hit Netflix show. And I'm super curious to see them talk about the difference between the book and how it got adapted and, all of that.
Right.
But we have some really special panels, too, like Centering the Margins and Who Tells Our Stories, Who Sells Our Stories, Black Authors Speak Out with Laura Cathcart Robbins.
Wow.
That one's going to be really phenomenal. We have some craft classes, how to write a scene, as well as publishing. A lot of people wrote in that they wanted to participate or hear about the different kinds of publishing. So hybrid is now something that's really of interest, and sometimes it goes sideways and it's not the best deal, and sometimes it's the best thing that ever happened to people.
Right. I saw that panel, and I'm actually a bit interested in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really interesting. I did have the pleasure of interviewing Neil Allen, who wrote Better Days. He is Anne Lamott's husband.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he wrote a book called Better Days, an interactive workshop on taming your inner critic. That's going to be his. So that one's so good.
Boy, I hope the ones I do aren't during those times.
I know. Trying to see writing about the metaphysical and spiritual realms. Raising Consciousness in Other Worlds. We have never had a panel like that.
Okay.
Writing from Our Immigrant Hearts. Promptapalooza. Kristen is going to lead
Kristen
that
Fogel?
one. Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. She's good at those prompts.
Yes. And let's see it's another one that I wanted to bring up. We're going to have live music.
It's going to be a poetry reading.
Yes, there's going to be open mic and curated poetry both in one of our rooms and in the courtyard. We're going to have a kids' rights ceremony, so we have a yearly contest, children's contest, and their awards are going to be handed out. Miss Lindsay Salaka is going to do that. Oh, and this is another good one.
Yeah, please. Writing
about place. How to write words that transport you. And that has some great journalists and authors.
I think that's the one I'm moderating, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
I see your picture right here.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to that one because I love words about that bring out the beauty of a place.
Right.
And these are travel writers and just people who are in that.
Yeah, like the editor of San Diego Magazine and people that work at the travel authority in San Diego and people that worked at Wall Street Journal and it's a really great pop. Yeah. Thank you for doing that, by the way.
I can't wait.
And then there's another one called Words Birthed from the Borders. What does it mean to be a writer along the borderlands?
Ooh.
Okay, here's one more. Luscious, biting, revealing memoir, the art of leaving everything on the page. And Gil Soto's going to open it up. And then, of course, the novel, Adrienne Brodeur is going to be coming. She's also getting an award. So the novel, how to write an unputdownable novel. That one's going to be a great one.
Yeah.
So there's a ton more, but those are some highlights. And check out the website and see what you want to come see.
What's the website?
It's San Diego Writersfestival.com.
Okay. Yeah. Go check this out. I can't wait to be there. I go every year. And there's going to be tables and
yes, people will be selling their books and there'll be food and live music.
And it's free. How do you miss that?
Yeah. And we really do, enfold people into the family. So come say hello.
Further proof of San Diego writers community.
Yeah.
So. Well, Marni, I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Me too. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.